Well, Christmas is just around the corner, so I'm going to show you how you can make these beautiful Shabby Chic inspired Christmas stockings. They're fully finished off with invisible seams on the inside and embellished with, well, I've put ribbons, lace, I've got buttons and some flower roses that I'm going to show you how to make later on in the video as well. But you can decorate these as much or as little as you like. Here's how to make it. To make the template for my stocking, I've taken the largest sock I could find, so that's a man's sock, and just laid that on top of a piece of card. I've drawn all the way around the edge of the sock, so that gives you a nice shape for the foot, and I've left about a 2-inch border all the way around. Of course, you can make that bigger, you can make it longer, you could have pointy toes or curly elf toes, or make that however you like, but I think that's the easiest way of actually making up the template. So put that to one side for now, and I've also cut my strips of fabric. All in kind of coordinating colours. It doesn't really matter how wide these are, but I've cut on average around about 2 inches in width. That one's 3 inches in width, but that really doesn't matter. You could add pieces of ribbon, you can make this very brightly coloured, Christmas coloured. I've kept mine in quite neutral grey tones because I like that kind of look. Now then, we're going to sew these pieces together and we're going to stitch and flip them. So this is a great way of using up scraps of fabric, maybe even if you have a jelly roll or leftover pieces like that. So don't throw anything away like that. So I'm going to cut them slightly longer than I actually need for my template. So we'll have that one at the top. We'll go for a spotty one next. And I'm just going to sew these together quite randomly. Let's have a check one here. And I'll show you how that works. No particular seam allowance, it doesn't really matter on these, and I'm going to sew them together at a jaunty angle. So normally you'd sew your pieces right sides together with the edges together like so, but I'm just going to angle this slightly so it gives more of a chevron kind of look to my work. So again, we'll go the right way. Sew these right sides together. Under you go, just got that caught. I'm going to pop some pieces of lace and ribbon after I've finished sewing them all together. And I'm only going to embellish the front of my stocking because normally they hang up against a wall or a fireplace. You could do this on both sides if you wish. So let's open this up. And for now, I'm just going to finger crease that. I'm not trimming away the fabric from behind there. I'm just finger creasing it so that the seam's open. And then take your next piece of fabric, and again that needs to go right sides together, so flip it over, and I'm going to put this slightly at the opposite angle. Just make sure that when you're sewing the two edges here that they don't actually overlap, because otherwise you're going to have a gap when you turn that through. This is really quick as well. It's a great technique, stitch and flip or crazy patchwork, that you could use on cushion covers or bed linen or bag making. Maybe make a whole panel using this technique and have that inserted in between two pieces of fabric, plain fabric, to make a panel in a bag. Would be a great idea. Okay, so that's how we're looking. Every so often, lay this on top of your template and just make sure it's going to be the right width. As you come down to where the curve is here, what you'll need to do is to just angle all the pieces of fabric around slightly so that you get the toe shape there. Okay, so when I've done all of that, I've actually put some fusible fleece onto the back of the pieces that I've joined together. So this has all been pressed and everything now. Fusible fleece just gives it an extra little bit of stability, if you like. Put my pattern on the top here. I'm not going to put the fusible fleece on the back section, that's only going to go on the front. Right, and then you can either draw around or just cut around your template as you wish. And save your template because you might want to make some more of these. Nice thing about this technique and Christmas stockings as well, you don't need to be particularly accurate. So if your seam allowance isn't the perfect ½ an inch or ¼ of an inch, or your cut lines or your stitch lines are a little bit wobbly, it really doesn't matter. So it's a really simple but quick project. I think the thing that makes it, to be honest, is the type of fabric that you choose. So if you have coordinating fabrics like these, and particularly with the greys, or maybe you're going to use beiges, linens, lace, neutrals, they are so fashionable at the moment. So I think that's what kind of draws the eye. So if you're making things to sell, I think your stand or your car boot is just going to look amazing. Oh, where are you? Come around here. Right. So that's the front of my stocking. I'll need to cut a piece from lining, or 2 pieces from lining, and 1 for the back of my stocking as well. So I'll do that now. So my lining pieces I'm just going to have in a plain grey. And this is a linen look of fabric, so it's quite sturdy. And then the back of my fabric I'm having in a grey check. My stocking, sorry. So I need to cut those pieces out in just the same way. Do be aware that if my check fabric has got the same print on both sides, so it doesn't really matter which way around it goes. But if you do use a print that's only printed onto one side, make sure that you cut the piece of fabric in the opposite direction to the outside of your stocking, so that when that's sewn together, you get the right side on the outside. Otherwise you've got a rather bizarre looking stocking. So let's just cut this piece out. And then we'll start to decorate. I'm also going to put a cuff around my stocking, around the top, because I think it adds a luxurious look. And there will be a ribbon off the back of this to hang it up with as well. Okay, and around we go. Whoops. And as I said, I'm just using a plain, well, the check fabric on the back. I'm not embellishing the back of this. But if you wanted to, then just make it 2 pieces in the same way as you did with the front panel. But remember again to have the feet facing each other, or mirror imaging each other, I should say. There we go. If you've got embroidery stitches on your sewing machine, maybe a few snowflakes or little rows of snowmen would look good. If you have an embroidery machine, then you could embroider your initials on here, or names, or Merry Christmas, or dates and things like that. So you can really go to town with these. Right, you can go to one side now. Let's have a look at the outside. What I noticed as I was cutting my fabric was this. That's the selvage. Some selvages are quite plain and boring. Some have got lots of holes in them, so you can't use them. I mean, all selvages will have holes in them, but I just thought that was so pretty. I don't know why with the grey fabric it's got all of these colours running through, but I think that looks really nice. So I'm going to add a strip of this, and I will need to fold that raw edge in over the top, because all this is frayed at the bottom. I want the top to look quite neat. So I'll just, again, press that. And I think that can go across that section there. I like all the pieces to be a little bit too long and then cut them down to size. I find that's makes it a little bit easier. And actually I could have picked out the colour of the flowers in this grey fabric with a pink or a mustard coloured thread. That would look nice. And then I also, what have I done with that? I also had a piece of lace to pop across there as well. Oops, just bear with me, that went on the floor. There, I got some nice thick grey lace, and I think instead of following the lines of one of the stitches, I'm going to go in just the opposite direction and maybe add that. Or maybe I should go down here. Yeah, we'll go down here. Just add that at a different angle. See how things never quite go according to plan. But I think that's the beauty of crafting, isn't it? Things evolve and grow as you sew. Okay, so I'm just adding maybe at a curve. Now you could carry on with strips of sequins, ribbons, more lace, different types of lace, satin ribbon, bows, sequins, beads, anything sparkly that you want to put on here. Just be aware that if you're going to put anything like the hard things like buttons or sequins, don't put them too close to the edge, because you are going to have a seam allowance of around about 1/4 inch, and you don't want to break your needle sewing over them. So keep everything within that outline if you like. But I think that'll do for that for now. Right, let's put this whole thing together. So I'll just move my scraps out of the way. So I'll need to sew these two pieces right sides together, and then sew the lining pieces right sides together, but I need to leave a gap in the back of the lining here so I can turn the whole thing inside out. So literally, let's pop those two pieces like this, leaving the top open, and I'm just going to sew all the way around. And then I'll stroke the dog. And you see in the lining I've left the gap. On a straight bit it's normally easier. I'm going to take some pinking shears and just cut around the curves. If you don't have pinking shears, then just make little cuts into the curve section. It cuts down on the amount of bulk in the seams and helps the seams to sit flatter. Not so important on the lining, because that will in effect stay inside out, but you'll find on the outer piece of your fabric that it'll look a lot neater if you just trim this back a little bit. So again, if you don't have pinking shears, just little V-shapes or little snips just into the curved areas would help. Don't need to do it on the straight bits. I'll just chop a bit of this down as well where the lace is, because that could be a little bit bulky. Okay. Now we're going to turn this side the right side out. And I did say I was going to put a cuff around the top, which I will do. I'm also going to put a few more embellishments on this when it's actually sewn together as well, because I found some lovely grey buttons which I think will look nice on one section, and I'm going to make some flower roses as well, just to decorate the top of it. I'll show you how to do that shortly. Okay, now my cuff, this is how it works. And it's a nice deep cuff because I think it looks expensive, and that needs to sit into the seam at the top, and I've frayed it around the bottom. The easiest way to fray your fabric, particularly if it's a tightly woven fabric like this one, is to initially tear it instead of cutting, and now you've torn along the grain, it's going to make it easier to fray these pieces. I actually find it really satisfying. Maybe take a little pin and catch some of the threads if you find it difficult, and pull them away until you get the length that you like. But I think that adds to that shabby chic kind of look, if you will. Right, so I need this piece to go all the way around the top. You could measure this from your template if you like, but I need it to go in a circle like so. Just a little bit easier than measuring just to hold the fabric up like this. So it needs to be ½ an inch longer because I've got a ¼ inch seam allowance, so that's going to disappear into the seam. So let me just, there we go, measure that. Put a little snip in there. And again, if you want to measure that with a tape measure, make sure it's perfect, that's up to you. But I find it just as easy to measure by wrapping it around as I just showed you. Right, so this piece goes together in a tube. Just come undone with my lead. There we go. Then I'm going to flip it over the right side out. And the seam at the back, I press that normally, is going to sit against the seam at the back of my stocking. Okay. I've also got my length of ribbon, which is going to hold this up from the back. That's a little bit long, so I'll just trim that down. There we go, so that measures about 10 inches now. Fold it over and that's going to sit facing downwards on top of the seam at the back. So when the lining goes in and I've got a seam here, it'll hang up from the back section there, and that'll all look nice and neat. So I'll take the accessory compartment off my sewing machine, and I'm just going to put a few stitches over that back seam just to hold that ribbon in place so I don't have to pin it. So all of the layers together here, and just give that a quick sew. There you go. Like that. And then this whole section drops inside the lining section. Make sure the toes are facing the same way. And we'll sew all the way around the top. So making sure my back seam meets with the back seam there. So I'll put a pin in here. Oh, ribbon facing downwards. That's it, push that out of the way. I'm not worried about pressing seams open or anything like that. It's only a stocking. This side, there's that seam. Oh, ends together. Like so. And then I'll just match up those 3 raw edges. So I've got the outside, I've got the cuff, and I've got the lining. So match them all up so they meet perfectly. So can you see what I'm doing? And then again with the accessory compartment off my sewing machine, I'll sew all the way around the edge. Just line those edges up together. Okay, so I'm going to sew all the way around the top here, and then we'll turn it the right side out, after I've taken the pins out of course, and see how we're looking. So again, just making sure all of those edges are lined up together, all sitting nice and flat. Nice thing about this style of stocking as well is that because I'm going to have so many embellishments on it, if I do get any wobbly lines or little bits that I'm not happy with or don't match up, I can put a bow over the top. I could add another piece of lace if I wanted to as well. So there are get out clauses, if you like, if it's not looking as perfect as you would want it to. Almost there. So that's how we're looking now. So we need to turn everything inside out, or the right side out, through the hole that you left in the lining. So there's the toe of the lining. Just pull this through. There we go, so that's how we're looking. So there's the outside. The cuff's going to fold down. The ribbon's at the back in the right place. Make sure that when you are putting these together that you put them together in the order that I did. So you've got the outside fabric, then the cuff, then the ribbon on the top. Because the first time I tried this, I lifted it up and I got the ribbon underneath there, which doesn't work. Right, then let's sew this opening together. I'm not going to do it by hand, I'm going to do it on the machine because no one's going to see this. If you pull the 2 sides of the hole, then the edges just kind of fall in. And let's just sew, starting slightly off the machine, the fabric, sorry, and then just over the 2 folds, up to the end of the hole, and then just scoot off the side again. So that's that. Now we can push the lining inside. It's a nice size of stocking, this one as well. You can actually fit some decent gifts in there. It's not just an ornament. And I'll give that a press. I could top stitch around the top, but I really don't think it needs it on this stocking. What I do think it needs though is a little bit of a decoration on the cuff. I think that's starting to look a little bit plain. So I'm going to make some fabric flowers. So again, I don't want them to be particularly neat because I don't think the stocking would look good like that. So I've cut some strips, I've torn some strips of fabric which are around about 1.5 to 2 inches in width. And this is what I'm going to make my flowers out of. So I've got one piece which is the floral, and one piece in the plain grey, and I've got one piece in red because it kind of lifts it up. And you can see just by using a red stripe it picks up on the colours that I have used on the fabrics on the stocking as well. So let's start with this one. I'm using a hot glue gun, which is my preference because it's so quick. If you don't have a hot glue gun, or you're a little bit nervous about using hot glue guns because they do get really hot, then a wet glue will be fine, but you'll need to leave it a while to dry. So if you do have a quick drying glue, that would be the easiest way to do this. So starting at one end, let me just trim that away, that's a little bit too long. Fold one side over to the other so that you've got a triangle in the corner. And then you don't have to glue all the way round, but just a little dab of glue here as you start to roll. And remember, if you're using hot glue, keep your fingers away from that. And then we're going to start to roll the fabric around a few times. And then when you've done it 3 or 4 times, fold over again. So you're taking the top edge down to the bottom edge, and then carry on rolling. When you get to the end of that triangle that you've formed, fold the top edge down to the bottom edge. And I'm pinching hold of the bottom of the flower. You can see it's starting to take shape now. And just keep winding and winding. Keep that nice and flat in the top. And we'll have another bit of glue on here. So you don't need to put the glue all the way across the edge, because when I put this onto my my stocking, I'm going to put a nice big blob of glue underneath there anyway. And you can see that really starting to take shape. I do need to just poke in, let's take a quick unpick, that centre piece. I didn't want that to stick out quite so much. So again, twist it over, roll it around. Twist over, roll around. Frayed edges look great, I think, on this type of flower. You could try using 2 different colours of the fabric together. That'd look good. And you can go as big as you like. I wouldn't go any deeper with your fabric, but the longer the fabric, the bigger your rose is going to get. So just keep on twisting. I just ripped a piece off my fabric for the whole of the length. And you can see I've still got the selvage on the end there as well. So just keep rolling until you're happy, and I think that is around about big enough. So it measures around about 1.5 inches across. So I'm going to chop off my excess fabric, wind the final piece around, and then just keep folding it so that the folded edge is on the top. And you can see it's a little bit messy on the bottom, I'm not worried about that. So a little bit more glue on there to hold it, a little bit of glue around the bottom there, and then we'll put that to one side to cool down. Now I have got a spiky bit sticking out the end. When this is all cooled down and the glue set, I'm going to chop that off before I put it on my stocking. And that's going to be glued onto my stocking. You'll find it quite difficult to sew through hot glue like that. So again, we can do this one a little bit quicker now because you know what to do. So fold one corner over, start to roll. Roll and twist, roll and twist. I love the look of these flowers as well. I mean, considering it's just a strip of rolled up fabric, they really do look like rosebuds. So you could add leaves, you could add maybe some little clear beads actually sewn onto the rose itself would look nice, because that would look like dewdrops, so that's a nice effect. Just keep going. And just like with Mother Nature, things aren't absolutely perfect. Again, my middle bit's poked out a little bit, so I can just push that back in. Now obviously this Christmas stocking isn't going to go in the wash, so I wouldn't be making flowers like this for garments. And well, you could make them into a brooch, but not on anything, or maybe a cushion cover or a pillow cover that would need to be washed, because these would just completely unravel. So purely ornamental or decorative for these ones. Right, I think that's big enough. So again, we'll chop off the excess fabric, make that reasonably neat so the edges are rolled over. And all of these end pieces corked with glue. Leave that to dry. Right, so I've just got one more final flower to do. I'm going to sew some little beads onto my stocking as well to decorate it. So when I come back again, you can see it finished. So I've simply hot glued on the 3 rosebuds there. I've added a little bow just at the back and some beads that I found, just some bead trimming, so it looks like a nice little posy there. And then I've hand sewn on just a scattering of buttons across the front. And I think you'll agree, it looks really stylish, it's practical, and I don't know about you, but I just can't wait for Christmas.